everyone. Welcome to Pivot to Profit, where we help entrepreneurs keep more of what they make. I'm Pam Jordan, and joining me today is our tax expert and guru, Alexis Sidney. Alexis, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here and can't wait to drop a lot of gems today.
All right, let's do it. But before we dive into today's topic, if you're a business owner and you need help to better understand your financials, you feel like you have more time than money and you're working hard and there's just not enough money in the bank. If you're looking for that financial strategy piece with the bookkeeping, with the tax strategy, the fractional CFO services, we are here to help. Just go to pamjordan.com to book a call with our team. All right. So today's topic is amazing. It's travel. It's actually one of my personal favorites. There's a whole social media meme going around that's like, I'm the friend that if you give me 5 minutes, I will book a trip anywhere. That is me in my friend group. I've literally done that 2 times where I was out drinking with friends and they were like, hey, we should go see the Derby. By the end of everyone's round, I had the Airbnb booked, I had tours booked, and I had a list of distilleries we were going to and tickets for the Kentucky Derby. So I am that friend. Are you a big traveler, Alexis?
I love traveling. I used to do a lot more of it when I didn't have my kids because they're so young, but I'm getting back into the swing of it. So I do love to travel. I do need you to be that friend in my life to say, hey, I got an idea and you have it worked out in 5 minutes. So I need that.
Yes, 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 yes. I am the friend that's like, I don't have anything to do. Like I don't have anything going on in May. Does anybody have anything going on in May? No. All right, fantastic. Let's have some, we sit around and talk. Oh, well, this is going on. Okay, cool. Like hold my beer. I don't drink beer, but like hold my wine and let me go get this booked. So I love it. All right. So we are talking tax. Alexis, why don't you just give a quick tax tip when it comes to travel, and then we'll dive in and really unpack all that.
One of the things when we talk about travel, I know a lot of times we're talking to business owners, so I'm going to frame my conversation around that. So we'll just start there. But definitely when I'm working with clients and we're talking about travel, everyone loves to travel. And so there's a thing of business travel and there's a thing of personal travel. And a lot of times, I always get asked the question, well, I'm about to take a trip. It is personal, but I'm going to be working. Can I write that off? And I tell my clients, yes, to a degree, you can. So I like to have those conversations. And if you stay on to the end, I'll give you some more deep dive tips on how to do that. But definitely there is a way where if you are taking a personal trip, because of course we know if it's business travel, it's on the business books, we're using the corporate car, the business has it covered, so no need to worry. But a lot of times if we're doing that personal trip, we're not going to go to Disney and use our business card, or we shouldn't be, I should say that, because some people do. But we shouldn't be using the business card, just swiping our whole Disney personal trip, unless it is a corporate meeting and you have all that structured up. That's another conversation for another day. But for today, if it is a personal trip, I always tell my clients to use your personal card for the personal trip. And if you do conduct business, like track how much time you're spending on business. If you're going to meet with new clients or new business companies or doing research, travel, different things of that nature around the business work, or even if you're in a cafe for 6 hours that day, working while your family's back at the hotel ordering room service, you're working. So I tell you to keep track of that so that once you get back from that trip and you sit down and you meet with me, your strategist, we can go down the list and see, and itemize it out and do some numbers, do some calculations so that way you can get a percentage of that business portion that you conducted business on your personal trip to Disney or wherever you went. And what happens with that is like you paid for it. Most of our clients have accountable plans set up. So for that month, once you finish, calculate everything, you'll submit your reimbursement so that you can get reimbursed for the business part. It shows on the books and all of that stuff. So we can talk more about the strategy behind it later on, but definitely that is one major tip that we like to share with clients. so that they can take advantage of personal trips and getting some business, work time in and, getting some write-offs there. So but
So,
my one caveat
go.
is I always say cruises are tricky. I was taught and learned, through IRS case studies happening and things like, let's not rock the boat with a cruise unless the cruise was a business cruise and it's all
Right.
business and, workshops all day and we can really justify it. But it gets tricky saying, hey, I'm going to take this cruise and I'm going to be working and doing business. So I tell my clients, let's not play that game.
Got
But
you. So
some
stay
people,
away from the cruises, but other things we can definitely make work. And
yeah,
I've seen, I'm part of a lot of different business masterminds and have buddies that are in business masterminds. And I've seen business masterminds have cruises so that the whole thing would then be a business expense. But they did have workshops during the
yes,
day and networking and those things. So that would definitely be, but like me taking my family somewhere like to Alaska, that's not going to be a business expense. I love it. I love it. Okay. So my profit tip for this related to travel is those credit cards, business credit cards that you have that you're swiping every month, those points that you get from those credit cards and the money back that you can use that for personal travel. It's tax free. So that's my little tip for you right there. So all those Amex points that I'm racking up, if I can ever use them for personal travel. And I actually just did this. I took one of our children on a trip and I used points, credit card points for the flight and points for the hotel. And all of that was business money that I used. And those points that I used for the travel, there was no money out of pocket. And it was all because of the business use. So you can
wow.
use credit card points and the money back for personal travel and it's not taxable. It's not a business expense because I've already used the card for the money. So don't neglect your business credit cards when you're looking at travel. Huge tip
Yeah.
there.
Definitely. You definitely need strategy around these credit cards and these points because a lot of times the business ones give you points, but sometimes the personal gives you even better points. So I like to have those conversations with clients so that we have a strategic plan and we're not commingling, but we have a strategized plan so we can make it work to your advantage and you get the most points for your bang.
I love it. I love it. I use personal money for the Disney tickets, but I use the business points for the flight and the hotel.
Well, you
So
did the right thing.
less money coming out of my pocket. And I will not be putting the Disney tickets on my accountable plan because there was no business related.
Well, I'm sure you checked the Slack channel or
Oh, I
something, but
was
I
working
think
while I
that
was
was
there.
it.
For sure. For sure.
So let this one pass. How about that?
I love it. And what's funny is we actually do have clients that work at Disney. And so if I'd been there a week earlier, I could have written off the ticket because I would have had meetings at Disney with our clients that were at Disney. But the timing of it didn't work. So I did have to pay for tickets out of pocket. But literally, if I'd been there a week earlier, our clients are Pivot Business Group clients that were at Disney presenting their products, I could have had a business meeting at Disney with them. I would have paid personally for my daughter's ticket, but my ticket would have been deductible from the business because I would have had a business meeting in Epcot. Just
Ah,
saying.
yes, that's awesome. And that's why it's important for us to know like all the details. Like don't leave nothing out so that we can plot and and I don't say plot like we're trying to scheme and do something underhanded because we're all above water here, but just knowing the details, the insights, the what ifs, this could happen, meeting with this, like it really helps us to help you to put together a strategized plan so you can get more savings. So definitely just keep that in the back of your mind.
I love it. I love it. So, as a enrolled agent, you are trained by the IRS to do tax. So you understand tax law, you have to do continuing education. That's why we call you our tax guru. So, how does the IRS look at business travel and what's allowed and what's not allowed? What were you taught? How was it explained to you? Give us a little lesson.
Well, definitely for business travel with the IRS, it's real clean and cut. Like if it's business, is employees there or you're traveling to meet clients, is work related, you're there working at least, I believe The time frame is at least 6 to 8 hours a day, or it can be different on different days. You can show like it's a conference you're attending, you're staying at the hotel, there's an agenda. Like that is business travel. It's pretty straight up. Some of the things, now I'm getting a little technical, but as far as the rates, we definitely, I always tell clients, and this is my government background kicking in, like we use the GSA rates. So we like to follow that. And I always
What is
instruct clients.
GSA rate? I don't know what that is.
Oh, and don't get me to mess up an acronym because I've been messing up acronyms all day, but the government standard rate, or I got to check that. I'm going to look it up. But
That's
GSA,
close
the
enough.
government, it works. It's the government. They have rates. And what happens with those rates is every year they look at them and they, up based on inflation and different things to that, or the index or different things. So what happens is that we have a set rates for per diem and for miles and for hotels and lodging and different things to that nature. So I always tell my clients, like, let's look at what that is. Because if you are traveling and you're away from home, anything over 50 miles, that's technically considered travel because you can't get to the home. So you get a hotel 50 miles away or 52 miles away from your home, that's business and you can write that off. You can do meals if you're, doing that, but you want to use like the GSA rates, and it's different for each region and state. I
Hmm.
used to do a lot of travel, so I knew New York was high. Certain states have high rates. So it's like, okay, your meal rate for today is $119. And it's like, yes. So I just like to be cautious with clients because if there ever was an audit, we just want to have some solid, logic behind our expenses and not. Now, if you did go take, your team to a meal and, you paid for that, of course, that's going to be probably in the thousands, depending on where you go and your team and all that. And that's fine. But if it's just you solely traveling, I like to say, let's stay within these rates. So if you decide, hey, I want to go to a nice steakhouse and you're in New York and the rate is 119 for the day, you can spend 119 and get reimbursed. But if your meal costs $2,000, come on now.
Yeah.
you
That's a
know,
little
that's a
excessive.
little excessive. So I do, I'm not the tax strategist where it's like, hey, you're not doing that. Cause I hear people say, they told me I couldn't do that. I'm like, yes, you can. But I do like to have reason behind what we're doing and following it behind, government standards of travel and their protocol. So that's where I use the GSA rate. So you can go online, you can look at the GSA rates for the different cities and you can see before you travel, like what is allowable for hotel rates and different things of that nature, and just kind of keep it within that perspective. But again, if you're traveling to like, and that's just you solely, if you're going to a conference or an event, it's kind of hard to form to those rates because if the conference rooms are 250 and that's what I have to pay, then that's what I have to pay because that's what's booked for the conference and the what they have going on. So we just like to put that stuff out there. So there is a difference between you solely traveling and doing visits or you attending group functions or group conferences or retreats or different things so that the prices can fluctuate. So it's a whole lot to consider, but that's how I learned travel. Now, when it comes to the personal aspect of it, it gets a little tricky. So that's why you definitely should have a plan mapped out because what you would never want is the IRS to do an audit and be like, nope, this is unacceptable. We can't justify this at all. And then you're like, wait a minute, lost
Yeah.
some deductions. And we don't want that.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like it comes down to the IRS terms of ordinary and necessary, right? Those are the powerful terms. So if I'm traveling on my own, as long as the expenses are reasonable and close to the government rates, I'm playing by the rules, I'm fine. But like, I don't need to stay at the Waldorf Astoria at $1,000 a night and expect that to be standard unless that's the location of event that I'm going to.
Yeah.
And that's just where you're pushing, where I hear you say that's just pushing the limits a little bit. And it just comes down to your personal threshold of risk, right? Like if the rate for New York, a hotel is $400, $1,000 a night, you can make it a business expense, but you are potentially walking a fine line of exposure there. However, if the mastermind event that I'm attending is at the Waldorf Astoria, swipe the card and keep on smiling and get a nice drink while you're there.
Right, right. And then the GSA, because I'm just not going to let us go without having the correct name, is the General Service Administration. I should know this stuff. I've been in federal government for years, but that's GSA. So they do have a site where you can go and look at per diem rates and all of that stuff and just be familiar with that for your own knowledge. But definitely any strategists that you're working with and you're planning out travel, they should be looking at that stuff and factor it in as it applies to your travel situation.
Okay. How should we handle meals? So say we're traveling with clients or vendors and we sit down, it's a nice steakhouse. A lot of times everyone just what I see happens when I do this is like there's 10 of us at a table, everyone orders what they want, and to make the life easier of the waitress or waiter, we all just throw our credit cards in and they divide it equally by 10. Is that fine? Is that playing by the rules? Like, what is the best way to handle that? Because like I might just get a meal and an appetizer and a glass of wine, where the guy next to me orders a Macallan 18 for $80 a pour. Like, what's the best way to handle those kind of situations when there's food involved when you are out of town traveling for business with business associates?
Right. So great question. I'm gonna share a little funny story. I was out recently traveling. We was at a mastermind and we all decided, hey, we're gonna go to dinner. So everyone was prepared to pay for their own food, their own meal, get their, deduction. And we had one of the members was like, I'm gonna cover it all. So everyone was like, no, no, you're stealing our deduction. So it's funny like when you go to, meals and stuff with business minded people and we're all there on business, and it's like, now you're stealing our deductions. You're going to get the biggest deduction.
You don't get the $2,000. I want the $2,000. Or at least I want the $150 for mine. Jeez.
Right. Right. It's so funny. So that was funny. I just had to share that. But definitely meals can be tricky. So again, if you're out on business, you're eating by yourself, just definitely I always tell my clients to just look at the GSA rates and kind of use that as your benchmark of what you should spend for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because they do break it out and they have a price for all the meals that you should spend for that day based on the location you're at. So let's try to follow that. But nonetheless, when it comes to group functions, if you're going to pay for your meal by yourself, again, just kind of follow the GSA meal rates for where you are. But if you decide, like my friend, to pick up the whole tab, then hey, you just pick up the tab and you pay for the meal and it's a business write-off. Because I always say for it to be a write-off per se, there needs to be more than one person, more than just you there. So you would just write it off and then you're good to go as far as the deductions. There's no rates on group meals and different things of that nature. I always say one of my pointers is anything under 75, because here comes receipts. And I know we hate receipts. I hate them and I'm bad at keeping track of them. Don't tell anyone. But I always say set a threshold for your business. Typically the government, and I always follow government because, long background there. But anything $75 or under, I typically don't bother with the receipt, especially for meals. But anything that's over $75, I like to keep the receipt just if I ever needed to show it for an audit or anything. So just keep that in mind. But that's, how I advise clients.
And one thing that I do is when the receipt comes while I'm signing it on the merchant copy, I give that back. But the guest copy, I'll write at the top what the event was and who I
Okay.
was with. And then I take a picture and upload that to QuickBooks so that if down the road anyone comes, knocks on the door and says, hey, Pam, what was this? I can pull up QuickBooks and say, oh, I was at this event with these people. And that's why I wrote it off. So
Right. That's a good tip. I think each accounting person has their own way of doing things, but I think that's awesome. I did start seeing within Relay because I use Relay banking, and if I'm traveling and paying for meals, like I started getting these dings like, hey, provide us your receipt. And I'm like, this is amazing. Do I follow it to the T? No, but it's amazing that it sends you that reminder. So it's like, okay, I got to give them this receipt and it uploads to your banking for you to have that proof. So there's a number of ways, but definitely having a system in place for receipt management is definitely key. And I think the phone is the best way to do it because we always have our phones these days.
Yes, I love it. Okay. So let's talk about travel, getting from point A to point B. So if we drive our personal vehicle for business use, then we can get the mileage reimbursement. But what if we need to fly there? How does that work? What, like, can I upgrade first class all the way? Like, what is appropriate there? Like, I'm not Delta 1 level, but also that, Delta plus Delta Comfort is nice with those extra 6 inches for my 5'4" self. So, like, how does the flight situation work? And I have some people, some of my buddies, that will only fly first class. Like, how does that work as far as business expense, not business expense? How's that approved?
Yeah, so always keep in mind ordinary and necessary. I have not seen any, laws that say, hey, you can't take first class travel. It is a little different from government to the personal world because we're business owners, we run our show. So we can take first class flights. You just, make it ordinary necessary. But there's no thing for the personal sector of business that say, hey, you can't get a first class ticket. You can write that off. The business can pay for it as long as it is business travel and it's not, hey, I'm going to see my girlfriends and we hanging out in Cancun for the weekend. That's not really business travel. That's personal. So make sure you keep that on a personal card. But if you so happen to get some business done, we'll just need to figure out the business portion and, make sure you get reimbursed for that part or some deductions, I should say. But yeah, nothing. Take your first class trips, enjoy them. Yeah. And anything over 5 hours, you definitely should get a first class ticket. I learned that the hard way.
Yes, do not want to be sitting in economy. I was on a red eye from LA and I was not sitting in economy for a red eye 6 hour flight. I was definitely in first class on that one. I used points to upgrade, but it was definitely the business card that got swiped. And then I used points to bump up to first class because I was not doing that. Okay. So let's talk about, say I'm a business owner and I'm going to be going to a business event and it's far enough away that I've got to get on a plane and all that. But I'm going to extend my trip because it happens to be somewhere where I want to spend time. How does that work? Like, what's allowable? Say I'm going, I don't know, to California and I want to spend time in LA, San Diego, whatever, explore the city. I've never been there. So I'm going to add a day or two at the front or the end. How does that work? Because I'm going for business travel and I will work while I'm there, but I'm also going to go see the sights and the Hollywood sign and all that. How does that work?
Right, good. So great question there. Definitely, there is some math to, calculate because again, you can always extend your business travel. But the time, like the extension, let's say you came a day earlier and you're doing all personal stuff, and then you stayed a few days extra and you did all personal stuff. We just need to do the math. Definitely the business portion is fully business. It's a write off, but we'll just need to figure out the personal side. And that's where the math comes in to say, hey, what did this cost? What did you do? Let's back this out and just do some number crunching on the back end. And definitely, if it's, hey, I decided to stay in the hotel 2 extra days, the business covered day 1 through 5, you can switch it to your personal card. So that way, you can cover the personal portion of it. It makes it cleaner and easier. So that way we're not making adjustments and, doing all this extra stuff. But definitely we just need to know so that we can give you the right guidance and say, hey, switch off to this card, do this, or just have a plan behind the scenes where it's like, hey, I'm going to do a reimbursement because it's just easier to keep it on one card and, figure that part out. But definitely extend your trips, take advantage, sightsees, tours. But of course, make sure you put that on your personal if you're not working for that day and it's not business related where you're taking a team out to enjoy those festivities.
Okay. And you said earlier that the IRS guideline is, do I have to work 6 hours for it to be counted as a business day? For example, say I fly out to LA and I extend for 2 days. One of them's a Friday. If I work 6 hours, does that day count? And then Saturday is a weekend. So, like, how does that work with days of the week? And how long do I have to work to make it count?
Yeah, so let's set on the table. Yes, 6 days is counted as a business workday
Six
for
hours. Yeah.
IRS tax deduction. But one thing to keep in mind, we're business owners, so we don't have to fall into Sunday is an off day or Saturday. Like if you worked on Saturday, if you worked on Sunday, there's no days of the week that are like off limits. So it can be any day.
Okay.
But definitely six. And then as far as like business work days and travel, you want to take into account travel as well, because travel is considered working if you're flying or trying to get to your location. So keep in mind of that. It's not just like, hey, my travel time doesn't count. You can count that time and, any additional work that you do that day for those days that you are traveling.
Oh, wow. So if I'm on a flight for 2 hours and then driving to the hotel and all that to get set up, say that's 3 hours of transportation time, that counts towards my 6 hours. So I just sit at my computer, work for 3 hours, bada bing, bada boom. I had a full work day, and then I'm off to the races to go do whatever I want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And then also keep in mind, the IRS has so many different things and hours. Like a full work day, if you did 4 hours plus work, doing business activities, that's considered a full day of work too. But if 6 hours or more, that helps to support the deductions and expenses. So
Okay.
it's a lot of tricky stuff that you need to know and understand. It's just, I guess it can't be just black and white. It's always and this or this. What
Yeah.
is this? So you just need to definitely, I guess, work with professionals that can help guide you the right way and make sure you're doing the stuff. But there's a lot of trickiness to the IRS code. So,
I find a lot of tax strategy, the answer is it depends.
oh, yeah, that's my favorite answer. It depends.
It depends. So the answer is not no. The answer is it depends. Can I
Right.
take my family on a vacation to Greece and make it a business expense? Well, it depends.
Yeah.
Do you have clients in Greece? Do you have research that you can do in Greece? Are you going to work remotely 6 days, 6 hours a day? Like, it depends.
Right. Or is it your annual corporate meeting?
Oh, I love that. So I do this with my board member, also known as my handsome husband. So let's talk about what, as business owners, we can do for our annual board retreat, corporate planning, quarterly meetings. What's allowed there? Because I prefer my business planning to be done on a beach rather than my office. So tell us what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Well, the beach, it depends because we can work on the beach with pivot bathing suits and gear and sweat. We're working.
We sure are.
Hey, and the team is there. We have an agenda. We have work going on. I'm sure we'll stay there 6 or more hours for the day. So it's work. No, there's no IRS law that I've seen or code that says, hey, you can't be on the beach. No fountain, no no lakes, no, So you just want to make sure that the people are there, the agenda is there, the time is put in, the company members, of course, the employees are there, and it's work. There's no limitations to where you can go. The only limitation is, like we just talked about, if you decide to stay longer, you know, at the beach for personal reasons, then that's where the business stuff shuts off and you deal with that on a personal level. But yeah, I have clients that go all over the world, definitely for the annual corporate planning meetings or the year-end meetings, and they take their board members and they have an agenda going on and they're meeting minutes and the officers are there or whoever is a part of that, they're there and they're discussing planning and working. Greece, Australia, I mean, there's no limit to say you can't take your company and have this meeting wherever you want to. So definitely in that case, that is a business deduction there because you have an agenda, activities, I'm sure workshops, outings, team building, exercises, all of that stuff is planned. So you definitely should be taking advantage of that if you have not been. But there are things that go behind it. You just can't go spend, have a good time. Like there are corporate things and minutes and meetings that need to be bound and different things of that nature. So you just want to make sure you have your ducks in the row and everything checked off, so that, again, I always operate from an audit standpoint. If you was to ever get audited, you just want to make sure we don't have to scramble and figure stuff out. That here you go, Mr. Revenue Agent. I have my stuff together. Thank you and
Yep,
leave.
yep, exactly, exactly. What I do for our annual board meeting is I have minutes, I have an agenda, I have spreadsheets, I even like I have a calendar, and then I also have photos. So like somebody wants to argue with me? No. Here I'm sitting on the beach with my board, who happens to be my husband, and we're going over the budget. Tell me like you can see my phone records. You can see that we were working the whole time. So just as business owners, one of the luxuries is the business profits can fund your lifestyle. But you need to make sure that that lifestyle, if it includes travel, is documented properly. Because
Right.
if you're going on this trip with your spouse, partner, team, leadership, whatever, and you don't have the proper documentation, you're potentially opening yourself up for risk in an audit. So just make sure that you understand what documentation you need to justify that trip to Cancun for 6 days with your board, and make sure that you have the documentation to show we did work, we were doing what we said we were doing, so that if anyone comes knocks on the door, check, that $3,000 is a write-off and he's on to the next thing.
Right. Definitely.
I love it. I love it. So, taxes and travel. It depends is the universal answer. Sorry, friends. I wish we could be more clear about it. But the good news is, like Alexis explained, if it's business, it's a black and white, swipe the business card, keep on getting it. If it's personal, but you're doing business while it's there are ways to benefit from that. And there are ways to make that family trip a business deduction, or at least a portion of it. So we have another podcast episode with Shane Mahoney from Lugos Travel, who's actually a client of ours. And he had some great tips on there. But as a business owner, you only have so many summers with your kids. You only have so much time. So make sure that your company is profitable and you do have the cash available to take advantage of those trips. And just make sure that you're documenting appropriately to make sure that it is without a doubt business related, and you're reimbursing yourself what you're allowed to and what you're not allowed to. And don't forget to use those credit card points, because they are a gold mine. So obviously balance your debt, make sure you're paying off your credit cards, all that. I've got to put on my CFO hat for a minute, but utilize those credit cards, because I have had a client who used the points from his Amex to fly him, his wife, and their 2 children to Italy.
Wow.
And that saved them thousands of dollars. And it was just because he was using his business credit card for his monthly expenses, and he had enough points, and off he went with his family. So make sure that you're utilizing the debt well, but also utilizing the benefits of those debts as well, because each airline has different programs and all of that. An airport lounge is my favorite. I love a good airport lounge. Make sure you've got a card that lets you in some of those. But the answer is it depends, not no. A lot of business owners are, I find, sometimes hesitant to take advantage of utilizing travel for business, but let's go. You can do it. Get on that plane, get on that train, stay off the cruises unless it's a business cruise. But there's a lot that you can take advantage of. Alexis, any last minute tax tip when it comes to travel for us?
Oh, yeah, definitely. This just popped in my head, and this is more for the ladies, because I know as we're traveling, we like to go get outfits because, we never have nothing to wear. Uh, So just keep in mind that, I'm not sure what your company accountable plan is set up for, with allowances, with things for business. If you have to speak, you have to get a suit or something because you don't have one. And, that's for branding, or you're doing photo shoots while you're traveling for company imaging and things of that nature. That stuff is, you can deduct that and some way, somehow get reimbursed for it through your plan. But if it's just, hey, I'm going to buy a whole new wardrobe because my company is taking me to Cancun, let's talk about that. So I just want to put that out there because I always get asked that question. Can I buy all these clothes for my trip? And I'm like, it depends.
It depends. If you're going shopping for this trip and while you're there, you're going to do a photo shoot and you need brand photos, use the personal card and then through your accountable plan, reimburse yourself.
Yes. Yes. So let's keep that in mind. So that was my tip
I love it.
also.
I love it. And my tip is get on the plane, y'all. Life is short. There's no amount of success in business that makes up for failure at home. Make sure that you're making those memories with those kids. You've got 18 summers with those babies. Make sure you're making memories on all of them. All right, awesome. Well, that's it for today's episode of Pivot to Profit. If you are enjoying this, make sure that you subscribe, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you're listening. And remember, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So we'll see you next time.